What's up, family? Thank you for tuning in to the dreamNation podcast. My name is Casanova. I'll be your host, and I'm excited to be bringing to you entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers from around the world. Stay locked in with us because we're about to go on a journey that will change your life. What's up, Dream Nation? We are back again with another episode that I'm sure is going to have impact on your life and hopefully on your sales skills if you are someone in sales. Today on the show, we have Mr. Riley Meek. Riley, you want to go ahead and say what's up to Dream Nation?
What's up, Dream Nation?
Man, it's a pleasure to have you here. So I always like to think of entrepreneurs and change makers as superheroes. And the reason why is because we're constantly putting on capes and we're flying around the world and we're trying to solve problems, whether they're for ourselves or for other people, hopefully. And I think that this situation is no different, but I always like to make sure that we can give the proper context. So before you have been impacting the lives of thousands of salespeople, before you've been featured and being able to develop a system and a process that can help anyone with their relationship skills and also selling skills. Talk to me about, if we could take it back when you were just a young boy, tell me, who is Riley Meek?
All right, man. When I was a young boy, it's a good question. I've given my story before, but just you mentioning that really reminds me of, I remember this unique time. I was 8 years old, and it's funny now because my daughter's 8 years old, but I remember I grew up in small town, South Dakota, and like literally less than 1,000 people. So it's not like there was a ton of opportunity or anything. At this time, I'd lived with my stepdad and my mom. I was 8. My folks had been divorced for about 3 years. They got divorced when I was 5. But I remember this unique time. I was walking down our driveway, and for whatever reason, and whatever your faith is of any sort, but I just felt like this immediate, like just this download. And I feel like I get these every now and then, where it was just like, I just knew in my knower, like in my inner being, like I was going to do big things in this world. I was going to make a lot of money. And at 8, I didn't even realize what that actually meant.
Did your parents have money, or did you come from like no money? Like, were you exposed to money at an early age?
Yeah. So it was unique. We had kind of ebbs and flows of it. My mom and dad were, my dad, he delivered mail rural route as an independent contractor, never really made more than 30, 40 grand a year, which in South Dakota, that's fine. My mom pretty much, waited tables, was a, bartender, things like that. So we certainly weren't, wealthy by any means. But when my mom had married my stepdad was an engineer. He had a pretty profitable company. And during that time, it was like, yeah, I had all the toys, like the go-kart and the trampoline, all that fun stuff. So I kind of went through ebbs and flows of it, which ultimately my mom and stepdad did divorce when I was, in high school. And I think a unique time, having gone through like a lot to a little. And I remember this one time too, when my mom, this would have been when I was like, probably 5 or 6 years old, when my parents were first divorcing, and we had lived off and on kind of with my aunt. And I remember, I don't remember this, but my mom tells me the story of me asking her specifically, like, Mom, why are you and my aunt Chrissy, just kind of tired and crabby all the time? And I don't remember saying this, but she had mentioned this. I brought this up a while ago, and she said, well, honey, it's because, we have to work long hours, and, we don't make a lot of money, and it takes a lot of work. And what I said at that point to her was that, well, I'm going to make a lot of money, mommy. And again, I don't want this to sound like all about money or anything, but that was, that a unique time. My mom said, what had happened there. Again, I don't have any recollection of that, but fast forward to when I'm 8 years old, and I had just like this kind of download that this is what I was going to do, to where I am now. It's kind of interesting because, when I was 15 years of age, I'd actually moved down with my dad, a town about 30 miles from where I'd lived with my mom and stepdad. They had a better sports program. I wanted to go down there, and my brother was a senior, I was a freshman. So I thought we would have kind of fun, going through our, high school like that and being a part of a better athletic program. And when I was 15, I thought, I should get a job. Not because my folks even asked me for it. It was just something that I just felt like I'm well able, that there's no reason that I can't contribute to the cool clothes and get the cool car. You're in high school, you want to impress the girls, right? So I remember the only real option there within this town was making pizzas at our local gas station. and this gas station was called the Humdinger. And a minimum wage at that time was $5.15 an hour. And so I took the job, thought, cool, no big deal. I didn't know what the meaning of, an hourly rate really meant. And when I did my first 8-hour shift. There's the first summer that I had this job. I did one shift. And after that, I did the math in my head. And I thought, there's no way in heck I'm ever doing that again. And it was like the first day on my job was the last day on my quote unquote job. And the reason why, it was really what made me so upset during that time frame wasn't that somebody put that hourly rate, that wage on the value of what I provide. It was more that I allowed that to happen, because I knew I was worth well more than $40 for 8 hours of time. And so like I said, I quit, and that was really my last quote unquote job. And that's when I really kind of seeked out different mentors, and I read every book possible that I could find on personal development, sales, marketing. And I ended up I moved up to Minnesota the summer of my sophomore and junior year, and contemplated even staying here to, finish out my senior year. But, back in South Dakota, when there's like 18 kids on the football team, of course I've got to be there, right? It's like your senior year, you got to be, the athlete, the quarterback, the point guard, things like that. So I moved back and finished my senior year. And literally the day that I graduated high school, I moved back up to the Twin Cities here, which is where we reside part-time now. And that's really when my initial thought was to go to college, become a chiropractor. My brother-in-law was a chiropractor, and I loved that. I was really in the nutritional and kind of fitness world. I became a certified personal fitness trainer, was retailing a ton of nutritional supplements at the time, upwards of over 10 grand a month in actually nutritional supplements. So I was making a decent coin, and I had that realization of like, I'm making pretty good money here. Why do I want to go to school for another, 6 years, go $150,000 in debt, and then have to build the business from scratch again, right? So I just continued kind of down that path, and I had great, again, kind of ebbs and flows with income and different business opportunities that had come along my way, opportunities to open up new operations. One of them happened to be down in Mexico, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Yeah. And at this time, I had owned a fitness center, an Anytime Fitness franchise. I'm sure you've got those in Omaha, right?
Oh yeah,
so
we do.
When I was 23, that's when I had bought my first kind of brick and mortar business. And I thought, this is going to be it, man. This is great. I'm going to build out. I'm going to own multiple of these throughout the country. And dude, I tell you, I'd never worked so hard in my life and made so little owning one of these fitness franchises. And nothing against that. It was just like the deal that I got myself in, because I didn't know how to negotiate leases and I did have the person I bought it from hold a portion of the note, but I really put myself in a predicament where, I had to have 600-700 members just to break even at this thing. And we were putzing along at, 5 to 550. So it was like, I'm constantly, hustling to get more members, but there's so much competition in that space. And it was like working 5 a.m. there. I'm training clients. I'm there till 11, 12 at night, trying to keep the place clean because I couldn't afford to hire anybody. And I was just like, okay, this isn't it. This is not what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So I certainly don't regret it at all. But I ended up finding a kind of an apprentice, we'll call it, who came in to take that club over, that allowed me to take an opportunity of a new company opening up operations in Mexico. And so I ended up renting out. We had a condo here in the Twin Cities. My wife was pregnant at the time. So I was like, I got to make some freaking money here. I got to provide for my family.
Right.
And went down to Mexico. Things were going great. We were crushing it. We were recruiting new reps, retailing product. In 5 months into this, the government actually came in and closed all operations. Just the entire company had to close down operations in Mexico. So 5 months in, dude, catching a flight back to the cities, the Twin Cities here. And not only was I pretty much broke, I'd invested everything that I had. I still had my fitness center, but that was bleeding. There's no income there. And not to mention, I'd leased out my condo. So I was coming back. I was virtually homeless, right?
Yeah.
We found ourselves sleeping on my sister's couch. And it was a unique time in my life, dude. It was like, I don't want to call it like I hope it was my rock bottom. I hope I don't ever get to that point again. But I was just on a quest at that point. And it was like, what am I going to do next? And I knew I couldn't go. I mean, I certainly could go work for somebody. There's never a point where I would, be too prideful to do that. But I knew that's not what I wanted to do. I
Right.
wanted to be able to provide. I had bigger visions, and I was just on a quest looking for different opportunities. And dude, I came across this ad on Craigslist of all places, and it simply read, it was a very simple headline. It said, work 3 days a week and make $10,000 bucks. So
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, right. Right. Like, what am I doing? Dealing crack here? What am I doing? 3 days a week, 10,000 bucks. So, but of course I had to inquire upon it, just the inquisitive nature. And I ended up getting on the phone with this dude, and he started talking about doing these presentations to groups of people. Is the first kind of introduction of selling one to many versus one-on-one, because everything that I had done from, fitness sales to nutritional supplements to I've sold siding and windows and business appraisal. I've done a lot of different things, but it was always just selling one-on-one. And it was, I would take, and as much as I loved the idea of, my earning ability was uncapped, they would always promote that, or it was all up to me. I earn what I'm worth, right? I love that idea of it, but I never truly believed it, because I knew my earning ability was capped by the amount of time in a day, right? I could only do a certain amount of presentations, dependent upon what you're promoting or selling, before you're just emotionally exhausted and you just can't, you just can't go on. You could just always sell higher ticket items to get a higher commission, or, manage a sales team or something like that. But it wasn't like, I just knew that I needed to figure out a way to earn more. And when I went down to this presentation that this dude was doing, it was a couple-hour drive. He invited me out, and I walked into a room, and it completely blew my mind, man. It was like I walked into the room. He had 20 to 25 people that were eagerly listening to him. He did a presentation. He fed them dinner. And then at the end, he simply said, for those that would like to learn more about what he was, promoting at the time, I've scheduled out tomorrow only. And out of that, he ended up getting 7 actual appointments to meet with people one-on-one. And so it blew my mind. I was like, this guy did one presentation. It was a rock star presentation, right? But a great presentation.
What was he selling? Was it like timeshares, or what was he selling?
Dude, no, you're going to love this. He was selling like radiant barrier, like insulation that you put in people's attics.
Wow.
I mean, something you wouldn't even think of. And that's what blew my mind, because I was like, well, I'm not going to sell that crap. Like, I don't know anything about home remodeling or construction. My wife hangs the pictures in my house. I'm the most mechanically.
They look good though. For anybody watching, they would agree. I mean, the symmetry of everything, it looks good. It blends.
It looks good, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's all my wife, man. For sure isn't me. So, but anyways, I left that presentation at a couple-hour drive home, and my wheels just kept spinning and turning and turning. And I couldn't believe that this is all this guy did. If he can do that in one presentation, a couple hours, heck, I'll do 5 a week and meet with people. And that's when I realized the leverage of group selling one to many, not only in time, but even in your marketing dollars as well. And I started just to think, like, what could we sell through this? And I did take some of his ideas and threw in a couple of mine, added in like some LED lighting and just simple things that would make a home more energy conscious, or just the ability to save money on your utility bills.
Right.
And we did, within a few months, I ended up doing our first presentation. And at this time, dude, remember, I'm pretty much broke. So I remember so clearly, I had $673 in my bank account. And that was like, I invested with my credit card, right? And it was like, I'm going to fill these events and see what I can do. And it was kind of a do or die moment. Like, I've got to provide. Remember, my wife is pregnant at the time. And I did my first presentation. We made a few sales. I took the profits from that and reinvested into the next event and the next event. And within that 6 months, man, this would have been in July of 2011. By the end of December, we did 2.1 million in sales. And that's when I was like, all right, let's start recruiting. Let's start training some guys here. And that's what I did. And the next year we did 12 million. We did another 12 million. And that's when I realized we got a well-oiled machine here. Like, what else could we sell through this? And I found another product we could sell. And that company, we did 5 million our first year. I found a different product that we could sell. And from now, whatever, it's 2020. So 9 years later, 7 different companies within different industries. We've taken all of them to 7 and even 8 figures within the first year and generate over $100 million in sales now. So it's been a
Wow.
pretty unique run, man.
Yeah, no, that sounds incredible. And we're definitely going to dive into all of that. The first thing I want to go back to is you said that, hey, you quit that first job of $5.15 an hour. And my thoughts on that was, what did your parents think? Because your parents, obviously, they had to know up front that you were taking this job. You're young, you're 15 years old. You're saying, I'm going to take a $5.15 job. And then all of a sudden you come back, you say, this is not worth my time. I'm going to quit. But I'm sure that your dad and your mom, who had worked very hard, especially being in the Midwest, what was their mindset on that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was unique about my folks and is they always let me kind of do my own thing, run my
Mm.
own race. And yeah, I could make my decisions on my own, but I was going to suffer the consequences, right?
Mm.
And from even like early on, if I want to go to a party in high school, if you get caught, bud, I'm not bailing you out for this thing, right? And that's who they were, and I certainly appreciate that to an extent, of course.
Right.
So it wasn't anything that they were really, upset about or gave me backlash about, because I think they knew, they knew who I am or was, in that, I had big visions even at a young age.
Yeah,
So
you're a pretty good kid, right? You might make a couple mistakes here or there, but they had a lot of trust in you.
yeah, I think so, man. Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't really get into any big trouble by any means. Maybe my dad had to come pick me up at a party, but no legal trouble or anything like that.
God.
So
And the reason why I ask and why I think that that's relevant is because nowadays, no matter who you are, if you have a younger brother, younger sister, or definitely if you have kids, kids nowadays, they're looking at things similar to the way you did. And they're saying, hey, for $15 an hour, even $20 an hour, I don't know that I necessarily want to do it for that because I feel like I can't allow myself to get paid that when some of my friends right now are playing YouTube and they're bringing in, they have a Twitch account and then they're bringing in $10,000 a month or $15,000 a month. And so I think the takeaway from there is allow your kids to be who they are and just kind of have trust into them. And I think for parents, it's very tough to do that. And I know myself, I'm constantly asking myself, because my son is gravitating more, especially when he sees that I have the podcast and he sees my whole setup and he's like, man, dad, like, and
uh,
you're just like, but you want to protect them because you're like, listen, there's levels to this. So kudos to your parents. I think that obviously it worked out for the best, but it's because of the
yeah,
values that they had in you early on.
yeah, and I think I completely agree with you because my daughter's 8. How old are your kids?
My son will be 9 in July and my daughter will be 3 in November. So
Yeah,
right,
man.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is everybody has their own journey that they've got to go through. And if, hitting, for me, it was like when I came up here to Minnesota, I didn't like, I had to figure out how to make money on my own. I wasn't really given anything. And I appreciate that because I
hmm
think so many they have a trust fund or they've got something to fall back on. Like, could I have picked up the phone and called 911 to my mom or dad? Absolutely. Which I think was maybe assuring, I guess, but it wasn't like my pride maybe would never allow me to do that, man. So it was like, and the same thing, even for my 8-year-old now, it's like, I'm reading so many books, like, okay, strong daughters or strong fathers, strong daughters. And I'm like, okay, how do I parent this child? Because the world we live in right now is jacked. And it's like, I think the biggest thing is lead by example.
right.
And yeah, Ellie, my daughter now, I think is going to have a lot of luxuries even, but we tell her that every single day, like, this is not normal that we're, going to the arcade every Friday or whatever. Like, most kids don't get to do that stuff.
Right.
And we try to lead the best possible way that we can by not over, spoiling her, but just making her understand that we are very blessed to have this and we need to be good stewards with what we have.
I love it, man. We go through the same plights and the same challenges. And I think of many people will be able to relate to this. And especially if you're a new or, aspiring entrepreneur at some point, if you put in the work and you build it on the right relationships, you'll be in that position where you do have to just figure out ways that you can lead by example, just like you said. So I'm glad that you brought that point up. To fast forward and get back to where you are now, talk to me about what was the biggest struggle that you think you've had over these last 10 years? Because, in the beginning, it was very rocky, but then you found your framework and we'll get into that. But then you started to really take off. But what was those things that we all have them, those one or two things that continuously pull us back that we're like, man, if we could have cracked this code a little bit sooner, it would have made our journey less volatile.
Yeah, man. I think self-doubt is the biggest struggle, which ironically I feel like I have more of it now than I did when I had nothing. Right? When I
Yeah.
had $673 in my bank account, there was no way in hell I'm not going to succeed. Like that was there's no way I'm not making sales. There's no way I'm not going to continue to grow this thing because I had the vision that it was going to happen. And I think once 2011, 2012, 2013, I I let off the gas and I
Mm.
was like kind of coasting. I had things were great. Built a beautiful home. Life was good.
Which was crazy
Uh,
because we were even still coming out of a recession then, obviously of
right.
2008, 2009. So we're still okay.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's funny now because right now, as we're kind of entering one, and it's like I don't even remember. Yeah, I remember that '08, but I was still. I actually remember I bought my first condo in '06, the highest peak of the dumbest time to ever buy, and I finally got rid of it last year for the same price that I bought it for in 2006. But that being said, it was like I don't even the I think the biggest thing was getting to the point where it's like, all right, cool, this is good, life's good, and then losing that fire, losing that
Mm.
drive, losing that, and dude, then I started drinking a lot. I started just like life was just I'm just like letting it happen, and versus going and get it, and some of my businesses peaked and then they came down, and I had to start another one. Peaked, came down, and for me, I think it's always has been about the thrill of the hunt.
Mm.
It's not like and I'll be real transparent here, dude.
Yeah.
So I got divorced from my first wife. Ellie's mommy and I were separated. My wife now, Ash, is amazing, amazing stepmommy. But that all happened during this kind of ramp up. So 2000, we got married, and when we get married, 2006, and we divorced officially. We separated 2012, but that was like during my peak, my ramp up, right? 2011, 2012, and it was just like there was no way that I was not going to let my business succeed at that time. And then I had to start another one, and I had to start another one, and another one, because I reached that pinnacle, and it's like, okay, I've checked the box. Now I can back off. And dude, I look back now, and why I think my ex-wife and I are great friends now, as with my wife and her, like, go get their nails done together, because we made it all about Ellie, and we've realized that, like, during that time period, it was all about, like, I got married, I checked the box, and
Mm.
it was like I checked out from that time in my life. And I mean, again, I was there, I was present, but I wasn't present. Like, I was a crappy husband. I wasn't providing to what I needed to, emotionally, what she needed emotionally. But I was getting everything I needed because I was building my next thing,
Right.
right? And then I was able to build the next one and the next one. And I've come to that realization, and now that's, I think, why we have such a great relationship, because I've learned a lot about myself and who I am through this process. And so everybody's on a journey. We're still on a journey, and I think having that realization or that awareness, that allows you to be intentional about your actions is the biggest thing that I've learned just through my journey up to this point. And who knows what'll happen over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
And from what I gather, is the fact that, just like you said, you were just checking boxes. You weren't very
Mhm.
present. So it was more so living in the moment. And I respect you for saying that, because I think a lot of, especially new entrepreneurs, they need to be hearing that, because it becomes the thrill of the hunt and the thrill of the chase, just like you said. And once you get that success, and especially when you come from rock bottom and you can remember having nothing to now you have everything, it's easy to kind of start to coast. you know,
Yeah.
because you've exerted a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And so I respect you for saying that. And hopefully somebody else takes heed to that. But let me ask, was your wife, when you were first starting out and you were checking these boxes and having this success, was your wife on board? Or do you feel like some of it contributed because you were an entrepreneur and you tasted the blood, but she necessarily wasn't?
Yeah, dude. So my first wife, right?
Yeah, your first wife.
Sarah's her
Yeah.
name. Yeah.
When
So
you were first ramping
she
up.
was on board, man. And she was extremely supportive, like literally anything you could imagine that you would want in a wife, and which wasn't what I needed at that time,
Mm.
really. And so it was like to the extent where I would come home from a day and she would be like, "How was your day?" and want to talk about it. And if I had a bad day, I was like, "I already lived it once. I don't want to talk about it." You know, I was just a dick. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, it was right. So she was great, and she was on board with where we were heading because I mean, she's like a supporter. She was a very, great partner in a relationship that you would want. But it wasn't really what I was needing or desiring at that time in my life. Again, dude, I was 20. We got engaged at 19. We were young and dumb. And
Right. Understandable.
it was just, I'm a totally different human being, as is she right now. But we still have that mutual respect on, just the journey that she has been on, and I've, been on as well.
Got it. And the reason why I asked that one is just because for a lot of people, I know I've often gotten the question that people say, listen, I want to become an entrepreneur. I want to take these risks, but my spouse doesn't necessarily, see it that way. My
Hmm.
my spouse thinks that we're gambling with our savings. My spouse thinks that I should stay at this job where I'm working towards a pension. And so with trying, obviously everyone's different. And I think the intentions are always good. But if you're not on the same page, if both people don't understand that, yes, there's this minor setback in taking a risk for a major come up, that could sometimes contribute to the fallout, even though both sides had good intentions. And so that's why I
Absolutely.
was asking that, just to kind of see if you felt that that had any, contributing factor to it.
Yeah, and even to kind of piggyback on that, now when I hire our sales reps, or even a new client that's like wants to become a new entrepreneur, because we deal with startups a lot that are looking for that, they need a source of leads and sales. That's one of my first questions: is how's your relationship? Like, is your wife on board with this, or your husband on board with this? Because if they're not, and what we do, all of our sales reps, they travel usually 2 to 3 nights a week. They're on the road.
Mm.
And so that's my first question. And not only do I interview like my sales rep, but I'm gonna hop on with the spouse too, because I want to figure out, like, are you on board with this? Are you cool with them being gone 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week?
Because it
Yes,
takes a lot of sacrifice.
it does, on both ends. On both ends, being on the road, sleeping in a hotel room, things like that. It can be, very lonely at times. And then being home, taking care of the kids or the house, and it can be very lonely at times too. So, but if you're on the same page with that, then great things can happen. A lot of money can be made if that's your goal. But it is crucial if you're not on the same team. Like, this is a team effort here in any stage in the entrepreneurship world. You're going to struggle without a doubt. And I would always choose relationship over business.
I love it. Do you think that there's a way you can balance it?
Here's the thing: I don't really even like the word balance, because if we say balance, that puts the picture in your mind that one's on one side and one's on the other.
Mm.
Right? You're balancing each other. This is more of working cohesively in a world where there's no balance. It is what it is. And it's a lifestyle that we have right now, and live. And yeah, it may mean I got to work long hours, but the point of this, I'm going to work these long hours over the next 2 years so we can, live the life, start the family that we want, year three, or whatever the case is, whatever the goals and aspirations are. But absolutely, my wife and I are prime example right now, dude. There's no way that I work every single day. Like, because that's what drives me and fuels me, and she knows that.
Yeah.
But when I'm with her, I'm present and I'm there to be with her, to give her what she needs as well.
I love it. We had a guest on the show. Her name was Tiffany Alice, and she's the budgetnista. And I'd asked her that question as well. And she gave me one of the best answers that I've ever heard. And she said, there's not a thing as balance, but more so harmony. When you're
There you go.
talking about harmony, they work hand in hand together, and they start to flow, which is what you said as well. Rather than, just like you said, putting one because you're apart then and you're not working together. You got one side. And when you're trying to do balance, that means one side's got to go down, the other side's got to go up. And it's a lot of friction that way. So when you can do harmony, that just means you find a way to cohesively, as you said, work together. And I think as long as you have the right communication and the right expectations are set from the beginning, if both sides want to make that work and they understand, like you said, that you're living like no one else now, so you can and essentially live like no one else later in these next couple years and build our family, that's what makes it work that much better. So I think you put it pretty beautifully, and I love it. Hey, what's up, Dream Builder? Have you been getting any value out of this episode? Would you like to get more exclusive content just like this delivered right to your inbox? If so, head on over to dreamnationpodcast.com and you can sign up for the email list, and that will give you access to exclusive content and more interviews just like this that's going to be delivered only to our tribe. So head on over to dreamnationpodcast.com. Let's get back to it. So let's fast forward. Now you've developed a framework, and this happened in your first couple years. You've developed a framework, and talk to me about what is that framework, and it's called social selling, or is that right?
Yeah. So I coined what happened, fast forward like from 2011, 4 or 5 years into it, life is great, making a lot of money, but we were selling products that I could give a rip about, right? Like, yeah. I didn't care about saving people's utility bills. Yes, it was helping them. Great. I would never sell something that would harm anybody, but I didn't care about it. I had zero passion for what we were doing. And I remember so clearly, I was coming home. It was a Wednesday night after I had Monday, Tuesday events. And as a Wednesday night, I got home late, wife and daughter were already asleep. And I just had this feeling of unfulfillment within me. It was just like, I hated what I did. And I sat down at my kitchen table and just was like, contemplating life, like what am I here for? And I thought back to the early days of when I was originally starting out in sales, right? Whether it be the nutritional supplements and how to figure out how to get leads, or door to door with siding and windows, like one of the worst jobs on the planet, but one of the best jobs, one of the most unique jobs that I learned the most out of sales, and just how human beings interact and make decisions. So I would never take it back. But I just thought back to those days of what life was like, the feast and famine lifestyle of a salesman or an entrepreneur. And I thought, man, there are so many entrepreneurs out there that have a passion for their product, that have a passion for whatever their service is, but they just don't know how to bring it to the masses. They just don't know how to sell it, right? And I thought, maybe the system here is the product. Could I actually teach people how to do this, that have a passion for their product? Because I knew my passion was people. I've always known that. I love to be able to pour into people and build relationships, expand their visions. And I just started to write. I grabbed pen and paper, and I just started to write everything that we do on how we start a marketing campaign, from identifying our true client avatar to creating a message that speaks to them, to understanding, like, what do you really sell? Like, if you sell the common example of, people don't buy a drill because they want the drill. They want a hole. But we take it so much deeper in the fact they don't want a hole. They want the hole so they can hang the picture. And they don't want the picture because what's a picture do? They want the picture hung so that the way that they feel within, when somebody comes into their home, the pride that they get, or the warmth that it just exuberates within their home. So we get to so deep into this, and the benefits of the benefits, to how to negotiate pricing. We do a lot of dinner seminar events. So how to negotiate pricing with our venues, how to set up the room, how to deliver the presentation, scripting to use on how to, take our RSVP calls. I just laid it all out. And I was like, could this be the product? And that was really the birth this Wednesday night of what we now call social dynamic selling. And the reason why I coined it that, because most people, it kind of confuses them a little bit. And I like it because most people think social, like, is it social media, or what is this social selling thing? And at the end of the day, it's selling in groups, because with any social setting, a group setting, there's a dynamic that's happening within there, right? Whether if you go to church, you've got the pastor, you've got the ushers, the greeters, the rest of the congregation. There's a dynamic that's happening in that room, right? During worship service or whatever. Or if you go to a bar and you've got the bouncer out front or the bartender, and you got the drunk patrons over here, the girls over here, whatever it is. There's a dynamic that's happening there. And we've figured out how to use that in a sales setting, right? Which it's more of an educational setting, but we were able to use language and in certain techniques or tactics that we've learned on how to create an environment in which people just want to buy.
If you have a tough crowd, right? And let's say in the world of, let's say, real estate agents, right?
Okay.
If you're working for a real estate agent and they want to know how to convince their clients, right, to use them, do you have a technique that you would say for a tougher crowd?
Sure. So first off, we want continuity with everything here. So I'm going to start with the messaging that we're speaking to them. How do I get them to show up? Okay. So maybe it's before here are the top 5 things you need to know before you pick your real estate agent, right? Something, get them curious, right? Curiosity is going to cause them to pick up that phone and RSVP, and all the copy we would, write out for that, so they know what they're coming out to. And once they're at the event, how to greet them. We're building rapport throughout the entire process. Certainly some of it's going to be dependent upon the size of the room, that what we're looking to accomplish there. But maybe just a simple technique that I'll use, that we've all been a part of this before. It's been used on us before, I guarantee it. And I'll give an example here. Do you remember? So an example would be called anchoring. And what I mean by that is, if I'm in a group, or go back to when you were in 3rd grade, and when you come in for recess and everybody's running around, it's wild and crazy, and your teacher's trying to get you all to shut up, right? Like, let's get in order here. She would always go over to maybe a place in the room, maybe the corner of her desk, and she would go, "Listen up, kids. All right, settle down, listen up." Right? And then she'd go on to whatever the next lesson was or whatever. And if at any point during that next lesson, the kids started to get rowdy again, all she would have to do is go back to that spot that she already anchored, in which she was, clapping and telling them to listen up. She would just have to slowly walk over there, stand still, and the class is going to naturally know, because subconsciously they know they need to listen up here because teacher's serious, right? Without having to do the other body language. So that's a prime example when you're dealing with a group of people on how to be able to actually control the room. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that definitely works. And that got me thinking, how many times have I been anchored? Right? I mean, it could be in anything. When your daughter goes over to the fridge, oh, that means they want, that's what I'm thinking. So yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, that's a good one. It's a really good one. Okay. And so you were saying social dynamic selling. Now you've used this, you've developed the framework. Can you, for anybody who's, thinking, okay, well, what does that framework look like? Do you have a 3-step process or 4-step process, or how does it work for you?
Yeah, it's really, we broke it up into 6 main steps, or modules, we call them. And I wanted to, again, I thought back to the days of, like, all right, I had $673 in my bank account. I didn't have money to really pay somebody to do this for me, right? So I wanted to be able to make sure they had the ability to learn how to do this. If there's a hope or a vision, you either got time or you got money. And if you got time, I still wanted to make it available to people. So I wrote a book called Food for Thought: How to Use Dinner Seminar Marketing to Grow Your Business in Ways You Never Thought Possible, in which I lay out these 6 basic steps, from building your marketing foundation to identifying your true client avatar, to crafting your invitation. We do a ton of direct mail. I mean, we do a lot of online stuff too, but we do a lot of direct mail still. It's the highest ROI that we get on our investment into actually marketing dollars.
And is this goal? So is the goal to get somebody in the door for the live event, or is it to get them in the door and close them within the 6 steps?
So each step has one goal, right? So the invitation, for example, I got one goal, and that's to get them to RSVP. Okay. And then I have a confirmation call. I have one goal, and that's to get them to actually show up. Okay. And there's certain tricks that we can use. Most of our events have over a 90% show up rate. Those that RSVP, usually 90% will show, short of a hurricane coming through or tornado warning, but weather dependent, we get such a high show up rate. They're at the event now. You have a presentation. Your only goal there is to get a follow-up appointment, right? So if we try to rush to the sale, you can't do that. It'd be like saying you go on a blind date maybe it's a little different nowadays, I guess. But when we used to go back dating, if you go on the blind date, you're not going to start out with, hey, I'm going to buy dinner and stuff here, but I'm going to ask for sex at the end of it, right? They're going to go, get out of here, right? You got to go through it's a natural progression in a dating process, just like there is in the sales process. So we do the presentation, we get the appointment, and then the appointment, once you're one-on-one, that's where you can actually get the sale. And then after the sale, it's obviously to not get a cancellation, right? So there's basic steps that we want to go through to create, because I believe every buying decision is an emotional decision, but it needs to be backed by logic, right? Because you can get, one of the things that we are not, and I want to be clear, is I'm not the guy that's rush to the back of the room, get your $48 real estate course that you're never going to freaking open or do anything with. That's not us. We are all about know, like, and trust. Okay. If I can get them to know me and like me in an hour and a half presentation, I've gained their trust because I've been positioned as that authoritative figure. I'm nice enough. I'm, likable enough where they're like, you know what, this guy he's a good dude. Let's see what the next step is, or let's see how much this is going to cost. Right. And then I can sit down with them one-on-one to actually close the deal.
Got it. And so walk us through now. I just wanted to know what was the goal. Walk us through, if you could, just briefly, what are those 6 stages?
Okay. So building out your marketing foundation. Okay. And then we're going to be crafting the actual invitation, identifying like what it is that you really sell. Okay. So that's where I was talking about the benefits of the benefits, and then crafting the actual invitation. And then once they're at the event, so there's key components in each one of these here, but once they're at the event, it's actually delivering the presentation, right? And that's where we're going to talk about how to set the room up, what time to serve dinner, do you do dessert, everything from we call it essentially like you're the ringleader. Like your circus is happening and you are the ringleader here. So we need to have you be in control of how to control the room. And then the actual appointment when you're one-on-one with them, and then always the follow-up, we call following up and following through to prevent cancellations. And just because somebody comes to an event and they don't give you an appointment doesn't mean that they're not a potential client down the road, right? There could just be times that it's just bad timing for them or whatever the case is. So, having a proper CRM program in place to continually follow up and work those leads is just as crucial as generating the lead itself.
Got it. And for anybody that's not aware, what is a CRM?
So if you're in sales, you've got to have a program, like a tool that you're going to be, so like salesforce.com, right? So a tool that allows you to keep customer notes. And the whole point of it is to retain that information and be able to have if you're on an email list, that person has a CRM in place, right? Where they know every time you click on that link, and anytime, you've gone to their webpage after the fact, it's collecting data, right? I love data. I don't love trying to figure it out. I love looking at the results of certain things, right? And how to tweak different things. Like if I say this, what happens here? If I say this, then what happens? And that's so important through any sales process, whether you're doing, live seminars or webinars, or you have an online funnel or whatever it is, you need to have that data in place.
I agree. And in CRM, customer relationship management, for most people in sales, I would agree that they probably know, at least, Salesforce or something like that. That's been great. So has there been a book or a blog or anything, like when you look for mentorship, when you look to advance your knowledge, your insight, especially over these last 5 years, when you've had to really try to scale because you had the right system in place, but we know that what got you there a lot of the times won't take you to the next level. And so what's been that turning thing for you that you've helped to always level up your mindset?
Yeah. A big book in my life when I was like probably 19 or 20, it was called The Science of Success. And it's by James Arthur Ray. And there's some great components in that book. And he was a part of like The Secret, Jack Canfield and things like that, where it was like, just what you think about, you bring about, right? Like that's just, your mindset is the most important thing. And if you can continually fuel yourself with good content, like that book, The Science of Success. Now I think he's a little kooky in some of the things that he talks about, but I at least love the principles of what he was referring to. And James Arthur Ray, I actually just tried to find that book online again. It looks like they've kind of redone it with certain different tools and components to it. So I'm looking forward to actually going through it again.
Yeah, we definitely will link that in the show notes. But yeah, that's one that I haven't heard anyone mention before. And I'm a
Right on.
big, I'll tell people all the time, I am an avid reader, but really I'm an avid listener because I have been one of the biggest clients for Audible for
Same
many
here,
a
dude.
years now because I'm always going so fast. So, but you got to keep the education. I appreciate you saying that. Now, man, this has been a phenomenal interview and I appreciate you coming on and dropping so much value. There's somebody out there right now that is very inspired and they love your journey. They love where you are now, and they would love to be able to blaze their own path like you've done. But they have that little voice in their head, and that little voice maybe tells them that they're not strong enough, they're not smart enough, or maybe they just don't have enough resources. What's the one thing that you would say to them to get them to just take action?
I've been in many situations in my life where I've thought that, and you hit it right there. Taking action, with action comes clarity. Like
Mm,
just sitting back thinking, like, what happens if this, or what happens if that, what happens if this? Nothing gets done, right? There's nothing gets done if you're continually organizing your desk. If you're not doing uh, money money promoting activities, if you're not driving traffic or leads to your business, nothing's going to get done, right? If
right.
you're trying to figure out how to get outside capital, just go sell something. There's nothing I hate more than that. And I'm like, well, how can I get my business going? I need money. Like, no, you don't. You can figure it out. There's plenty of people that have figured it out that have had zero money. Some of the most successful people in the world started out with nothing. And I think it is just knowing that, taking action. And if you don't believe it, you got to surround yourself with the right people that do. And
Mm,
look, reading those books like Science of Success, seeking out a mentor, finding I didn't have a mentor or anything until I was 27, right? And
mm.
I made a decent amount of money at that point. And then that's when I was like coasting and I realized I got to get my crap together, right? It was like, I got to figure this back out. And the best thing I've ever done was hire a coach. And
Mm.
I have a business coach and a personal coach right now that I'm never not going to have that, because having that accountability is a well worth an investment, 10 times of what I pay for them right now. I hope they don't ever hear this. But it's well worth the investment that I pay to have somebody, have that accountability. And I really encourage that person not to be your spouse, right? As much as you want, if you work together, that's great, but you do need an outside source that's not vested necessarily. They're vested in you, but they're not going to give you that personal opinion that you may want to hear or may not want to hear as well.
Got it. I love it, man. I think that that's very key as well. You need different perspectives and having people that are not going to be your yes man or yes woman
Exactly.
that's going to challenge you on not only your beliefs, right? And not to say spiritual or things like that, but why you're doing certain things. Because sometimes, the temptation of whatever could make, we know why we got into business in the beginning, why we decided to sell this product, this dream, this service, whatever it is. But sometimes through other distractions or other pain points, we can lose sight of that value. And so having someone that, again, is going to challenge you to say, why are you doing this? Have you thought about the implications of what could happen on the backside if this doesn't work? I think that those are all the things that make us have a holistic and sustainable business. So I think that's a great, great point that what you brought up as well. Man, it's been a phenomenal call. Talk to me
Yeah, man.
about if people want to stay connected with you, where can they find you at?
Probably the easiest is just a website. It's my first and last name, RileyMeek.com. Riley spelled a little differently. It's RYLEE and then Meek, MEEK.com. I think you can, on that site, we've got some resources. You can download like our dinner seminar blueprint. But if it's all right, dude, I actually had my team prior to this morning. I said, throw up a link for this, for the DreamNation group. If anybody wants to get a copy of Food for Thought, you can certainly buy it. It's on Amazon. It's an Amazon bestseller. Now it'll be a digital copy, but I'm willing to give it for free out to any of your listeners, man, if they go to socialdynamicselling.com/DreamNation.
Love it,
You,
man.
you do have to enter your email, and then we will email you the full PDF version of the book, Food for Thought.
Sounds great. And we will make sure that we have those links in the show notes for both Riley Meek as well as social dynamic selling. It's been a fun one, man. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure there's so much value that people are going to get out of this, and people will understand the value and making sure that they, one, are present, but two, that they can scale their business if they have the right framework and looking at what's already working and how can you then help other people do the same thing, which I think is what I've heard a lot from you, and I'm proud of you, and pleasure to have you on here, man. Remember,
Absolutely.
Dream Nation, in the dream we trust, but you must take action, as he said, or otherwise it will only merely be a fantasy. We'll see you on the next one. That's all we got for this episode. Thank you for sticking around. That truly means a lot to me, and hopefully that means that we delivered massive value on this one. If you haven't already, the way that you could say thank you to myself and the team is just by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review and a rating. That's what iTunes loves to see. That's how we get out there even more. And I would definitely be grateful for it. I know the team would as well. Do me a favor and head on over to dreamnationpodcast.com. That's where you're going to be able to find all of the resources that we talked about in today's episode, as well as more exclusive content. And you'll also be able to sign up to our email list where we have more exclusive content. And we always love to hear the feedback from you all because you're our tribe. So remember, in the dream we trust, we'll see you on the flip side.